Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
without any much waste of time, I want us to go straight into what we have for today. We are looking at the latest development as regards to what happened in Enugu State. NYC has come to testify against Mr. Mbah, who is the present governor of Enugu State, that the NYC certificate he submitted wasn't issued by them. So does it mean it was forged, or they are yet to properly investigate? So please, can you just take us through all these funny dramas coming up?
Funny indeed. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can.
Okay. It's good to be here in this space once again this wonderful weekend. And I hope we are going to progress to really discuss how all these things impact the petition of Peter Obi and Labour Party with respect to certificate forgery situations. And today we're also going to take time, possibly looking deeper into precedents, how the courts in Nigeria have ruled in election petitions with respect to forgery, certificate forgery, and cases like that. I think the Enugu State issue is, I definitely don't know how any judge will wriggle out of this situation. The reason being that the Director General of NYSC came on national television and said verbatim that the certificate the Enugu State Governor is currently submitted to Inec, the NYSC certificate, was not issued by them. At this particular point in time, the then governor-elect had filed a suit in the Federal High Court, Abuja, I think Federal High Court, Abuja, yes, claiming damages of 20 billion naira from NYSC for purportedly claiming that the certificate they issued to him was not authentic. He made other prayers, which is not relevant for this discussion now. But when the NYSC Director General, now, he did not just come to the national television to say it. He came during the edition of the 50th anniversary of NYSC, and he wore his full military regalia as a brigadier general. So he was not just speaking as a person, he was speaking as a director general, and he was speaking in his capacity as a general in the Nigerian army. Now, fast forward to the hearing of the case in Abuja. NYSC appeared in Abuja, in the Federal High Court in Abuja, to defend themselves and tendered a sworn affidavit again, detailing the fact that the certificate this person was parading indeed did not come from them. They went further to say in that affidavit, which I have a copy, which they tendered as evidence in the court to quash the so-called 20 billion naira damage claim and what have you. They went further to state that the person in question actually was mobilized for youth service. But according to their clause, that the person, please, my printer is printing off something, if you don't mind. I'm sure someone has sent something from maybe somewhere at the corner of the house. All right, okay. So that the certificate in question was not from them, and that this person in question was actually mobilized for NYSC. However, from every indication, it's like he absconded. To abscond means, of course, for some of us who have served in the NYSC, it means that you started and somewhere along the line, you abandoned your service here and went away. Now, they also showed, if you remember, we all have done our NYSC. Have we all done our NYSC in Nigeria, by the way?
Yes.
Yes,
okay. Gloria, have you gone through the NYSC process?
Yes, I have.
Of course, you know that when you arrive at the orientation camp, you register with your call-up number. all right? With your call-up
Yeah.
number and everything you register. If you look at that in the thread, if you're wise enough, if you understand the process, because NYS is like a paramilitary, they copy a whole lot from the military. Your discharge certificate, you can actually predict it from the day you registered because it goes in sequence. It's like serial, after this number, the other number. So NYSC went on to show that the batch of the certificate they issued to this person during the service year when he served was in the 6 series, I think 60-something thousand series. Whereas the certificate he currently tendered to NYSC was in 80-something thousand series. And that when others were claiming their certificate, he was not there. So they went further to show the batch where people were signing. You know how on the day of the passing out, the POP, passing out parade, everybody goes to sign their certificate. And everything will be trailed from your call-up number to your registration number and everything. And you get to that place, check your certificate number, sign it. NYSC showed that this person did not sign his own. And that as a matter of fact, they have gone ahead to destroy the original of that certificate because the person was now termed to have absconded. But they have, of course, the copy of the certificate they destroyed. So, fast forward to yesterday in Enugu. I am told that the Director General, not the director in charge of certification, was subpoenaed again by the Labour Party governorship aspirant, and that the man appeared in person yesterday in NYSC to still tender the same evidence. The law firm that started this whole revelation was also subpoenaed, and the woman who was the signature of that law firm was also in court yesterday to testify of the fact that, yes, indeed, NYSC had written them before to say that this certificate was not from them. And further revelation also showed that the same law firm went as far as going to the Federal High Court in Lagos to get a certified document which they extracted showing that this person in question was serving as the chief of staff to the governor of Enugu State at the same time he was supposed to be serving in Lagos. So, from what I have learned and which we are going to see today, when the issuer of a document says that the document you have was not issued by them, I think the case is over. So I saw some people today posting on the internet and everywhere saying, why hasn't the person tendered the resignation honorably and go? And I'm laughing. It doesn't happen in Nigeria if we know our country. It's going to get to Supreme Court. It will definitely get to the Supreme Court because Supreme Court will eventually hear it. They will finish at this level of tribunal. They will go to appeal court and then get to Supreme Court. But what I don't know is whether any of these hierarchies of courts will judge differently, given the precedents that we would like to discuss today. So is it okay for us to follow this part now and move on?
Yeah.
Now, if what we're about to discuss here today is anything to go by, it means that Labour Party will get a second state, and that is Enugu State.
Wow.
Because the issuer of the certificate has said that they did not issue the certificate, that the certificate the person in question is parading was not issued by them, that the one they could have offered issue to the person was nowhere to collect it because he absconded, and that they have destroyed the original, only kept the copy. And they went further to bring other archival documents to show that indeed they were they did what they did according to law. So Question again is, what technicalities will the lawyer of the respondent in the case of Enugu State Governorship Election Tribunal throw up that will make the judge to say to throw it out? Because as long as forgery is concerned, the certificate that was tendered was really indeed forged. But is it possible that they could come up with some kind of technicality and say, oh, you did not present it this way. Instead of presenting it with the front, you presented it with the back, or from the side, you presented it from the left. I don't know. Anything is possible in Nigeria. But I think this one is highly publicized. I don't know how the court, the judiciary will rescue their image if they, for any reason, did not allow this go through, especially given the abundant precedents they themselves have upheld in time past. For instance, I think it was in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, there was a case of a pre-election matter within PDP, one Christian Abba. It was found that he forged the OND certificate of Federal Polytechnic movie, and he was disqualified for that purpose. And when he was disqualified, this is what the court said. The court said that Nigeria will be doomed when certificate forgers are allowed to take center stage in the election for political offices. The court further went on to say that the person in question, Christian Abba, that's in Benue State Benue State House of Rep situation. The court further went to say that the same person in question, Christian Abba, who must not be allowed to have his way because he has had his hand soiled in an established certificate forgery. Now, there is also another case that was handled at the appeal court, because, you know, I think the House of Rep, they have only two levels. After election, pre-election, I think pre-elections get to the Supreme Court, pre-election matters, but post-election matters for House of Rep, I think it stops at appeal court, whereas governorship get to Supreme Court, presidency get to Supreme Court. So in the case of Issa Mohammed Wabu of ANPP and others versus Honorable Mohammed Garba Gololo of APC, this is Gamawa Federal Constituency of Bauchi State. The Court of Appeal sitting in Plateau State ruled in this respect. Initially, the lower court, which is the trial court, the tribunal, dismissed the case of Issa Mohammed of ANPP, saying that they did not prove beyond reasonable doubt that there was a case of forgery. Now, this person who was the defendant at the initial stage of the trial, the Mohammed Garba Gololo of APC, it was alleged then that he forged the Lagos State University BSc certificate, claiming that he graduated in 2002, NYSC certificate of 2003, and then the Lagos State University MBA, claiming that he was issued the certificate in 2005. So he had 3 certificates, 2 from one university and 1 from NYSC. So when the lower court, which is the high court, ruled against the prayer of the ANPP, the prayer of the ANPP candidate, Mohammed Wabu, Issa Mohammed Wabu, he approached the appeal court to revisit the case. Now, I'm going to read this. The appellant submitted, that is the person who is applying now, that they prove beyond reasonable doubt that there are allegations of disqualification of first respondent for presenting forged documents to Inec. According to them, the best evidence to prove false certificate is a report from the institution which purportedly issued it. And they cited a case, the case of Mohammed versus Wamako in 2016, and other cases they cited. According to the appellant, which is the ANPP, it is irrelevant whether it was the respondent or any other person that forged the certificate. And it suffices that the certificate he presented to INEC was forged, meaning, you know, there was the case of this current president, Bola Tinubu. Something happened in during the time he was a governor, there was also issue of certificate. He submitted the certificate. This issue was there. And somebody came up to say, oh, it was a mistake. He was so busy. I did it on his behalf. The mistake is mine. And the House of Assembly then of Lagos State gave him a clean bill. Say, oh, it was a mistake of somebody. So what this statement here implies is this. If I have you as my assistant and I ask you to help me sort my document and you mistakenly sort those documents and submit it on my behalf, that will not exonerate me, because the 2022 Electoral Act says that every document you want to submit is like a certified true document that you believe is the authentic, and it has to come through a federal high court in Abuja, meaning that every document you submitted it under oath. Are you there? Does that make sense? Madam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Now, it means that for you to submit a document according to 2022 Electoral Act, any document you submit is a document you submit under oath. So there is nothing like, oh, someone did it for me. You know, just like you're traveling and you get to the airport, you come to the security, they say, is this your bag? Yes. Did anyone help you to pack this bag? You said no. What it means is that if we open this bag and we find anything in this bag that is incriminating, you'll be held liable for it. Does that make sense? So the Electoral Act 2022 made it in such a way that there is no excuse for anyone who has signed Inec form to come back and say, oh, it was a mistake. Someone else filled this form for me, or someone else submitted this form for me. The Electoral Act blocked such kind of possibilities, because whatever you're taking was under oath. You said, I know it is correct and to the best of my knowledge. And so, and this is how the court rules in that case. The court says Section 65 of the Constitution is subordinate to Section 66. You know why? Because the defense lawyer to this guy who forged certificate was saying, oh, fine, even if he forged degree certificate, NYSC certificate, he's still qualified to hold the office because his first school leaving certificate is what qualifies him. That's the minimum qualification after all. Okay? But then, now, in Section 66 of the 1999 Constitution is where the list of the qualifications to the office of the House of Rep were listed. But Section 65, it says Section 65 of the Constitution is subordinate to Section 66, which makes presentation of forged certificate by a candidate to INEC a disqualifying factor. So it is immaterial whether the first respondent, Mohammed Kololo of APC, possessed the requisite minimum educational qualification under Section 65. So, sorry, Section 65 lists what you need to present, but Section 66 tells you that if you forge any certificate, you will go for it. And you remember also that we talked yesterday about the other section of the Constitution where it is impossible for you, that is Section 130, what again, of the Constitution, where it was talking about the 10th, I think it was, is it 135 or 139, subsection 1, A, B, C, D, E for the office of the president. Part of it is that the J there is that if you forge if you present anything that is forged, you will go for it. So the court rules here. Section 65 of the Constitution is subordinate to Section 66, which makes presentation of a forged certificate by a candidate to INEC a disqualifying factor. So it is immaterial whether a candidate has a minimum requirement or not. Okay? So in resolving the issue, the court held that for the appellant to succeed in their allegation of disqualification of the first respondent on ground of having presented forged documents to the third respondent, which is Inec, does not have to prove that he was the one who actually forged the said document. So what it means is, the guy in Enugu could say, well, the certificate I have was issued to me by DHL, helped me send it when I called, whatever. It doesn't matter whether he genuinely have that certificate thinking that it was issued by NYSC. What matters is that NYSC said, it is not us that issued this one. Whether he was genuine or he was deliberate is a different ballgame, because someone can say, I am genuine, so that tomorrow he will not be charged for perjury. You understand what I mean? But the material fact here is, whether you be exonerated for innocently making a mistake, the fact of the matter is that the mistake has cost you a position. So, like in the case of the presidential election, we have seen it all over the internet that the copy of the certificate submitted to Inec by the APC candidate is not the copy of the certificate that the university in the US issued. Well, it might be a genuine confusion. Somebody may have stayed in Nigeria and called the university, say, please, can you issue me a certified true copy of my certificate, without knowing that the number ended in the hand of Yahoo boys. And the Yahoo boys say, okay, pay so and so in $1 account, and we're going to issue it for you. And then the Yahoo boys generated the certificate. Innocently, he collected it, thinking that it was the right certificate. And it is the fake. As long as the issuer says, I did not issue this certificate, and they can convincingly present it, how can you say that it is the issuer that is lying? It's not possible. And again, what worries me again is that I heard that this same candidate said around 1999, when the issue of the original certificate was an issue, that it was destroyed when the military invaded his house. So, is this person now trying to imply that indeed this one he submitted to Inec is a photocopy of the original that the military destroyed? Now, the issuer, the university in the US, has now said, this is not what we issued. The photocopy we have in our record is different from this thing we are seeing. So the question is, will the courts remember what they said in the case of Christian Abba, when they said that Nigeria will be doomed when certificate forgers are allowed to take center stage in the election for political offices? Will the court remember that they said that this same person who forged OND certificate must not be allowed to have his way again? It says the court said that Abba must not be allowed to have his way because he has his hands soiled in an established certificate forgery. Well, the court revisited it this time and remember that they made this thing to clean up Nigeria. Or what technicality will the court come up with and submit to and waive this? It is PDP that raised that prayer of certificate forgery. But I know that if he goes for PDP, it benefits Labour Party. You know what I mean? Now, secondly, the court further went to say that all the petitioner needs to prove, all they need to prove beyond reasonable doubt is that the said documents presented were forged. And in proving the presentation of a forged certificate to INEC, the person asserting the positive does not have the duty to prove that the person who presented the forged certificate was guilty of forgery. Did you understand what happened there? As in, like in Enugu State or even at the presidential level, the Labour Party does not have to prove that the person, the governor of Enugu State, was the person who forged it. He may be very genuinely innocent. He did not forge it. As I said, he may have picked up a phone, being so busy, and called one number that was supposed to be NYSC number and say, please, can you just give me a copy of my certificate? I am making an application. And the number got directed to Yahoo Boys. And they sent him a fake certificate. Sorry, he may be that innocent, but that is not an excuse in the eyes of the law. All right? And secondly, that does not mean that the petitioner is actually pointing his hand to the person and say, you are a forger. No. I'm not saying that our president, because he's the president of Nigeria today, is a forger. God forbid, I didn't say so. Or am I saying that the governor of Enugu State is a forger? You have seen, I've created an alibi for them. Yahoo Boys are doing wonders in Nigeria. They may have been conned, but that con is going to cost them heavily if the court upholds the fact that the material they submitted is not a copy of the material produced by the producer. That's all. That's all. And then it says here, it says, but that he made presentation in the first place and that the certificate has been proved beyond reasonable doubt to be forged. That this is the intendment of the spirit of section 66 subsection 1I. Section 66 subsection 1I. According to the court, from the clear provision of section 66 of the 1999 Constitution, there is no doubt that presentation of a forged document to Inec by any candidate for any election under the Constitution, including House of Representatives and other elect offices, disqualifies him, and that this is regardless of whether such candidate possess the minimum qualifications set out by section 65. So there is nothing like, oh, okay, fine. If you have a problem with my PhD, with a PhD, if you have a problem with PhD, remove it. Let masters come up. If you have a problem with masters, remove it. Let BSc come up. Here, one out of the 3 certificates he was challenged, BSc, NYSC, MBA, one of them is equal to disqualification. In fact, if it was a NEPA receipt that he submitted a fake copy, that's deadly. So what I don't know is why politicians will submit certificates that they did not earn when the bar is so low for them. The bar is so low that as long as you can speak good English, you don't even need to go to school, to be honest. As long as a company you've worked before can say, this is our former MD, he's an excellent personality, and he speaks good English, you don't need to go to school, to be honest. So why are they throwing in all those things that are implicating them? That's what I don't know. Nigeria, the standard to become a president in Nigeria is so low. Why must you go to implicate yourself? I don't know. Let's go further. It says, according to the courts, from the clear provision of, okay, I've read that. Section 65 of 1999 Constitution makes itself subject to Section 66. And that when something is made subject to another, it means it is inferior to and controlled by the thing to which it is subject to. Just like a subject is always inferior to its head. Meaning everything in 65 is useless if you violate anything in 66. Okay. That the act of making a false document or altering a genuine one for the same to be used is what is called forgery. Have you heard it now, the definition of forgery?
Yes.
I said it yesterday. If my name ends with T and somebody adds H, thinking it's a tailbet instead of a tailbet, and I deliberately or mistakenly use Tipex to clean or to add, it's become forged. So I am altering the original. That's why when you see error in your certificate, even when we are collecting our NYS certificate, they will say, check. If you find any error, call NYSC for correction.
Yes.
Because if you carry it like that and it implicates you, that's dangerous. So if you have your degree certificate today, if you have your master's degree certificate, if you have any kind of certificate and you check it and your name is not well spelled, don't help. And maybe it is just I, and you think you can just fix it there. After all, that is what it should be. The law said, no, if you try it, you have forged it.
Mm.
And so I have a problem with the fact that the logo on the certificate tendered by APC candidates to Inec and the logo of the one certified by the university are not the same. I also have a problem with the fact that 3 signatures signed the one he tendered to Inec and 2 signatures signed the one that was submitted, that was certified by the university. But someone might say, did the university issue it? Yes, the university was subpoenaed. The law firm in the US, the name of the law firm in the US who subpoenaed the university to produce everything in the record of this candidate were there. So he came. And it was this Enahoro of a guy, this law firm in Nigeria, that hired that law firm in the US. And that law firm was paid and they went to collect those things. So when APC come to the court to defend their candidate saying that he attended university, no problem. Nobody at my level here, I am not saying that he did not attend the university. I am not saying that he did not earn the degree. I am only saying that maybe if what the university tendered as the original, as their copy is different, maybe he fell into the hand of the Yahoo boys. Is that a good thing to say? Yes. And what does the law say when you fall prey to such Yahoo boys? Well, you may not go to jail for forgery, but you lose the prize of what you're chasing. That's the consequence. It says here, these are the way the court, these are statements from the court. It says forgery takes either of 2 forms. It could be the making of a false document, in which case there will be no genuine one to be tendered in order to make a comparison. The other form of forgery is altering a genuine document to be used as real. That is, it was therefore incorrect to hold that to prove forgery, 2 sets of documents must be presented. The forged one and the genuine one. So it's immaterial. What if there is none existing in the first place? But you can see that in these 2 cases, both at the federal level for Labour Party prayers and even in Enugu State, that there were 2 available, the genuine one and the fake one. So the case is even so easy. It says that it was therefore incorrect to hold that to prove forgery, 2 sets of documents, the forged one and genuine copy, must always be tendered, as this would amount to asking for the impossible. That's what the court says. According to the court, the best evidence to prove forgery of certificate is a report, not even a physical evidence, a report from the institution that purportedly issued it. That's the best way to prove that something is forged. So this is what this appeal court of the Federal Republic of Nigeria ruled. Guess when they ruled that? Guess when? 2019. Just 4 years ago. Okay? Just 4 years ago. And then, that's not all. Let's move on to the one that got to the Supreme Court. And that was the case that was so appalling. A gentleman was rehearsing, preparing to be sworn in the next day as the governor of Bayelsa State, 24 hours to that being sworn in, he got a call that Supreme Court has fired him. And it wasn't even his fault. It was the fault of his deputy. Now, what happened? The deputy governor has had 1,001 change of names. The name in the first school living certificate is altered and different from the one of the school certificate, which is SSE, not GCSE. I'm saying GCSE as if I'm in there, SSE. And, with all those things. So it says here, the funny thing here is that the 5-man panel of the Apex Court, in the unanimous judgment delivered by Justice Ejembi Eko, nullified the nomination and participation of the governorship candidate David Loyne and his running mates. That was in November 19. (2019) election. Bayelsa State governorship election comes November. They nullified it. This particular judgment occurred in February 2020. Why? So the Apex Court, which is the Supreme Court, held that the running mates to the governor-elect submitted forged credentials. They submitted forged credentials to Inec. The court held that there was no connection between the name on the candidate's school living certificate and the first degree and the master's degree and the affidavit he swore. Just this confusion, just his name. The person is saying, this is me. But do you know the funny thing? The lower level, which is the high court, the trial court, condemned him and ruled against him in favor of PDP. They got to the appeal court. Appeal court nullified the one of the lower court. And then he went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court upheld the judgment of the High Court. What does that tell us? Appeal court is the election tribunal, is the election petitions court. Everything we are talking is Supreme Court. I think we should forget about whatever the judgment of this appeal court will give, because the judgment we are waiting for is the Supreme Court.
Yes.
They will either uphold or annul. That is it. It says, the Court of Appeal upturned the decision of the trial court and affirmed the candidature of Loyne and his running mate. The Court of Appeal upturned the decision of the lower court, as I said, which means the trial court, the petition tribunal, actually ruled against him. The appeal court upturned that judgment. The Supreme Court upheld that judgment of the. What does that tell you? As you move up the ladder, it is either I accept the previous judgment or it is not accepted. So what is going to happen in Supreme Court is, will they accept whatever judgment that appeal court will give in the case of the presidential election, or will they reject it? Remember that in the case of Adeleke versus Oyetola, the trial court, which is the high court level, they threw away Adeleke, but the appeal court upturned the judgment of the trial court, and the Supreme Court upheld the judgment of the appeal court. That's why Adeleke is a governor today. So that is it so far. These three cases are important. I
wanted to ask, why is it that this forgery of a thing is very common among our politicians? I don't know, it sounds so funny, as in, I don't know the kind of picture, that Nigeria portrays before the international community. Seeing what is happening back home. This person forged, this person forged, this person forged. It's not really looking good at all.
It did not start today, but I mean, remember as far back as 1999, I don't know how young we people were then, whether you're politically aware or conscious of what was happening in Nigeria, but the Speaker of House of Representatives in 1999, an intelligent young man, he actually falsified, I think he falsified his age because he was too young to go into politics. I think the minimum bar then was 30 years and he was 29. So he falsified his age. So you're saying why? Because they want to get the office. But then he also claimed that he went to Toronto University in Canada. He was jailed, you remember? He was jailed, which means he indeed forged it. First, he lost the office, and secondly, he went to jail. But Obasanjo pardoned him. And it has always been like that going. But why, like you say this, the bar is so low. Why do you need to? Who are you trying to impress? Right? Just like the person who came to bamboozle the Labour Party councils in courts, claiming that he's a lawyer practicing in the US. You could see few questions thrown at him. He just felt like a pack of cards. Do we necessarily?
But do you think increasing the qualifications for one to become a presidential candidate, do you think that will remedy this kind of scenarios that is playing now?
To be honest, like I just said now, but the bar is so low. I mean, if you increase the qualification, that will actually tempt people to forge that qualification. The bar is so low. It's already so low. With your first school leaving certificate, meaning primary 6, you're qualified. And if you didn't do primary 6, you can say in this country, I didn't go to school at all. However, I have personally developed myself. And these are the ways I've developed myself. If you went through the military, they know that as a second lieutenant from Nigerian Defense Academy, you are like, I don't know if it is a BSc level, because Nigerian Defense Academy is like a military university. So if you're graduating, you're coming out as a second lieutenant. So you're more or less a bachelor degree holder. It's just this lust for people going for what they don't have. That's why we hear in Nigeria, professor, doctor, engineer, all this. Even me, sometimes I have to begin to include in my name doctor. Sometimes I live in a society where nobody cares whether you're a doctor or not. It is the output of your work that amounts. But you people want to come to, I feel more relaxed when you say, Mr. Eptel, I tell that. The moment you start putting that doctor, it's not as if I'm not qualified. Look, I'm a well-read person and I'm proud of myself. I have my first degree in engineering, electronics engineering. I did my youth service afterwards. I went to University of Nigeria. I got a postgraduate diploma in public relations. I came to London. I got a master's degree in business and strategy, and I came out with distinction. And then I proceeded to do my PhD in one of the top universities in the world. And I'm proud of that. But that is immaterial. If I want to come and vie for an office in Nigeria today, I'll probably just give you my first school leaving certificate so that I could be quiet. Let my input and contribution speak for me. One person I respect so much in Nigeria today is, who is this guy that is producing car in Nigeria, in Anambra State? Innocent. The day I listened to him, oh my goodness, I was calling my friend and said, why is it that all the universities in Nigeria are not giving this guy honorary doctorate degree? He's so intelligent. He's so smart. Now, when he speaks English, you could see his terms and co. Chinese people don't speak English. He doesn't need to speak good English. The guy is a genius. Oh my goodness. If I float the university today, I will give him a honorary doctorate degree, because people need to research him to get doctorate degree. He is a material, he is a brain in Nigeria that people need to research his philosophy and ideology. And if you can research his philosophy and ideology, you should be given, and write a thesis to back it up, you should be given a doctorate degree. And that is where the idea of honorary doctorate degree comes, because you have distinguished yourself in a certain area that even though you didn't go through formal university, the people who went through formal university are not better than you in that area. But today, all you just need is a few cash, and the universities are calling you, awarding you doctor. Some people are even ready to answer doctor, because 3 universities are ready to give them honorary. Okay, we have to call it off for now. I don't know if you have any further question. So,
okay, so I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I have a question, and it's regarding this certificate forgery. One thing about Nigerian politics is the fact that we know that most times people want to vote for the people, like for the candidates involved. I don't know if this candidate they feel that giving the people, like giving Nigerians an impression that they are qualified or something. Maybe that's why they are trying to forge their certificates. Maybe they feel, someone like Tinubu, let me use him as an example. Maybe he feels that okay, if I don't get this certificate from this prestigious university outside Nigeria, maybe people feel I'm not qualified or something. Is it because they want to just get this impression? That's why they are trying to forge their certificates.
Well, you're asking me a question that we can refer to the psychologists now, to be honest. I don't know. I don't know
Okay.
what is their motivation. Different thing motivates different people. But like as I've said, does it matter? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So I don't know what is their motivation, but whatever is their motivation, unfortunately, it's coming to haunt many of them. And it's putting them in some kind of big challenge now that I don't know.
Dr. Tabet, I wanted to ask, what's the implication of what is happening now as regards to Peter Obi's petition, considering that our sitting president also has a similar case?
The implication is Nigeria could be shot up the ladder as in rank if the judiciary could sit up to follow what we're discussing here and say, well, this is what the law says. Remember, our law provides that even if you have already been sworn in, when in the discharge of the contentions regarding the process that led to you being elected and sworn in, that you can be recalled back. It has happened at the governorship level. It has happened at local government levels. It has happened at the National Assembly levels. It hasn't happened at the presidential level because it hasn't been challenged effectively. In fact, I am told that in 2007, the Supreme Court actually initially voted 4 against Yaradua versus 3 in his favor. But that one justice at the last minute changed his own vote, which means it would have happened in 2007. The law says it. So I don't believe that statement that, how can you dethrone a sitting president? Even the president, he swore to uphold the Constitution. And the Constitution says if the court finds out that the process that led to you being here is not the right thing, you're going to be removed. I believe so. I do strongly believe that Nigeria is in the verge of making history, because if anything is to go by what we are discussing here today, and the court goes on to uphold it, it's history for Nigeria, and it is good for Nigeria. People think it. Now, remember that this election, there were 3 major candidates that contested for this presidency: APC, PDP, and Labour Party. And that even the vote given to APC by Inec is just somewhere a little above 1/3, isn't it? Now, what it tells you is that about 2/3 of Nigerians, if we use that result declared as a representative case, by the time you bring the vote of other small parties and ANPP and PDP and Labour Party, you see that about 2/3 of Nigeria says we did not vote this party. So the question you need to ask yourself is, will more Nigerians be happy if this particular thing is upturned, or will they be angry? Because the whole prayer that will sustain the sitting president is prayer that will make, as it were, 1/3 of Nigerians happy and 2/3 angry. And it is challenging even for the judiciary, because with the way the information is flying, what is happening in the court is still filtering. They should know that Nigerians are hearing. They are waiting to hear that kind of technicalities they will use to say every prayer that has been made. Remember the issue of dual nationality, the issue of certificate forgery, the issue of forfeiture, the issue of, remember, the information had it that in 2003 or 1999, he submitted NYSC discharge certificate. And that this time around, he submitted NYSC exemption letter. So how could one person have both this discharge certificate and exemption? And the court knows that the world knows, even if it has not been presented well in the court in terms of the technicality of the presentation of the evidence. The judges, somebody once says that aside from the letters of the Constitution, there is what is called the social justice. Will the judges allow someone, a criminal, to escape through technicalities? Will they think they have done justice, even socially and constitutionally, when they see a stark criminal who has a gun and pull the gun on somebody's face, only to say that, oh, the law says that if I pull that gun and it is the third bullet in the distance, I am free, when it is obvious that he killed someone? I don't know how court will look at it, but I think that those men in the judiciary, they have work cut out for them to do. They have work cut out for them to do indeed. So I think the next thing we need to deal on is, let's go back to this FCT matter and trash the FCT situation, especially connecting it with the Constitution, because we have not really dealt with it, connecting it with the Constitution and precedents. What happens in the case of Buhari versus Obasanjo in 2003 and Buhari versus Yar'Adua in 2007? And then what is the Constitution saying? So that our audience will understand all these points, what has happened before, for them to know whether their confidence will be high and their expectations should be high as we await the outcome of the judgment, or whether they will hold their heart and say, wow, we don't have a good case here. That's what I think. What do you think, people? I can't hear you.
Sorry. I said interesting times in Nigeria.
Yes.
We keep hearing different news, as in different topics every day. Well, it's good that these things are unfolding. At least we'll address them once and for all. And we are looking forward to the new reform. You know, that the Electoral Act will still have to go some, reforms. So
yes,
really want them to consider some of these developments, because I think we just have to learn from our experiences. All these things that we are seeing now, we just have to learn from them and see how we can work on our Electoral Act, so that in the future, we don't just keep continuing, experiencing the same. Just like you said that your parents complained about the process, your grandparents did, you yourself, you are doing. And what we are trying to do is not to allow our children to come and start experiencing all these things. My happiness is just that the Nigerian youths are involved in this. You know, it has never happened in Nigeria, what we are seeing today, that people really want to see that change come and let it come fast. We don't want it to linger, to delay anymore. We've really had time to be patient with our politicians to see if they will ever consider the people, the ordinary man on the street. Look at sometimes they do argue about how much our senators are earning. But look at the ordinary people. People can't even afford 3 square meals. Some people can't even eat twice in a day. But you know, some people just keep carrying everything. And when election comes, they are ready to do anything just to get to that position. Even if they didn't go to school, they will forge and tell all sorts of lies. Look at our former Senate president that didn't participate in an election. He became a senator and he has been in that Senate for long. Some of them have spent above 20 years there and they don't have any dream of quitting tomorrow. They just want to be there until their political career ends or they age. I don't know. That's why they are so desperate. They can do anything.
I think like the issue of that former Senate president, that's what I call really the virus of technicality. And I think the judges would also know that as I'm talking about social justice, Nigerians don't want justice to be sacrificed on the altar of technicalities. This is very, very important. Because I think what happened at that level of the Supreme Court is that Supreme Court ruled on technicality instead of after the fact. How was it filed? How was it submitted? And all those things. But the generality of the thing is that people know that this person did not participate in the primaries. So you cannot say that the Supreme Court broke the law. They did not break the law. But you see, if you want to find something, you will always find it. If you want to find fault in anything, you can find fault in it. They found fault in the application through technicalities. And Nigerians have expressed their worry. In fact, a former justice of the Supreme Court complained and said that was wrong to be done by his colleagues. Because you need to ask yourself, what is the implication? How will the society benefit? What are we trying to do when we set up court of justices? What is it we are trying to achieve? To give smart criminals a leeway to perpetuate their crime, or to make people say evil cannot thrive as long as our courts are there? I listened to the judgment of this Nigerian senator who was involved in the issue of kidney transplant, whatever, here in the UK. As I listened to the judge, I noticed that majority of the thing he was saying was more like he was more interested in social justice. He would read and say, yes, I've heard that you're so and so. However, more like he's saying, my conscience is not going to allow me let you out on technicalities and what have you. Our judges should begin to get human face and begin to save Nigeria with their pronouncements than doing things, as it were, that could encourage crime to continue. That's my prayer and my pleading to
How
our
do we
court.
even begin to build strong institutions? Because I think this is
really... It can start. The court is one segment of the judiciary is one segment that can shake up things. There are the kind of judgments the judiciary will throw out. By next election, every politician will clean themselves, will sit up. But there are the kind of judgments they will reel out, even if they find exit routes from the constitution. It will harden the politicians next time. Yes. Does that make sense? So that's why I'm saying the courts, please, should begin to think on how they can use their own department, their own arm of the government to strengthen our institutions. What is the intent of the people who made the Electoral Act? Is it to create a leeway for for smart politicians to rob and escape, or to make our election, the integrity of our election, to be established? What was it they intended? That is the spirit of the law, both our constitution and the Electoral Act. What was it in the first place that prompted Nigeria to invest as much as 300 and almost 400 billion, which is about $1 billion, about 100 billion, am I right? About how many billion dollars? 306, about $1 billion to get IREV. What was it we intend to cure? Did we cure it in this presidential election? The judges should ask themselves that question. Will they allow Inec to explain themselves away? Or will they say, Inec, a gentleman may lose his presidency because you messed up, and slam that hammer, and by so doing, jog up both Inec, both the National Assembly in the amendment of the Electoral Act, and Inec in the execution of their duty, knowing that if you mess up and you near the court, they will cut you to size.
Honestly.
There was that former commissioner of Inec, I've forgotten his name, who used to come on media to say that a place like UK, it was the judiciary that cleaned up the electoral process. That judiciary so made it hard for them to continue to perpetuate their crime, to the extent that if you hear that you're going to court, you have to skip. But in Nigeria, they actually tell you, go to court.
Go to court.
The judges should ask themselves, why are people who are breaking the law bold enough to ask people to go to court? And why can't they sit up to stop it? Why? I don't know.
Yeah, we just.
I'm becoming emotional about this now, but it's painful. It's painful. It's really, really painful.
Gloria, have you got anything to say?
No, ma.
Okay. So, guys, we'll be rounding it up for today. We thank you all for joining. So we'll keep holding our judiciary, our judges responsible, because, to fix Nigeria, we are just hoping that they will do the needful. If they can get it right this time around, I believe that the next election cycle, our politicians will sit up. They will sit up. They can't just come and contest and plan whatever they want to do, because they believe that when they do it, they will just go scot-free. They have the judiciary, they have the judges. No, we don't want those things to just continue that way. We want things to change. At least if our judiciary, if our judges can complain and deliver judgment the way it's supposed to be, honestly, our politicians will sit up. They will sit up. They will sit up. We won't continue this way again. Look at forgery everywhere. Look at everything that happened during this election. People will depend on their talks to suppress voters. They use all manner of means, just to prevent people from coming to cast their votes. And at the end of the day, they will tell you, go to court if you are not satisfied. Now we are in court and we are just believing that the judges will not fail the Nigerian people. Let them dispense justice. And that is just all we are asking. Thank you so much for your contribution, Dr. Etel. Thank you, Gloria, for joining.
Let me
and we also want to say a very big thank you to all of you who joined today. We'll be here again tomorrow. Please do well to join, and let's keep discussing and sharing our thoughts, hoping that a new Nigeria is already by the corner. Thank you all for being a part of this program. Bye.
All right, bye. Thank you all.
Bye.
Good, yeah.